Hey, this is the Unit 2A, right, practice test, or practice test 2A, whatever you want to call it. So this is over the test. The test is over the first three sections of Unit 2, and this is essentially what the test looks like. That's why it's called the practice test. And this has multiple choice and everything. Or on the questions that aren't multiple choice, they're not multiple choice on here. So like I said, this is pretty much the test. So if you do this, study this, practice this, know how to do these questions, you will be successful on the actual test. So let's get right into this. I want to do question 1. What value of x makes this equation true? And then it gives me this what seems to be a really long equation. Okay, so I'm going to highlight exactly what I'm solving here. Okay, that's what I want. So to solve this, and the reason I highlight is just so you can see there's a negative in the front. I know a lot of people will ignore the negative or just not realize that's part of the problem, and they start with the 1 plus 5x, and then your answer becomes wrong just because of that one little thing you missed. So if you need to, underline it, highlight it, circle it, whatever you got to do. But don't forget, if there's a negative in the front, that's part of the problem. All right, so if I have parentheses, which I have parentheses on both sides of my equation, I'm going to start with distributing or multiplying whatever numbers outside the parentheses to every term inside. So on this first part, I just have a negative sign with no number. So really, it's not there, but it's really a negative 1. So that means I'm going to multiply negative 1 times 1 and times 5x. Okay, so negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x. And then my plus x doesn't change, equals 7. And now I distribute my 4 to 1 and minus 2x. So 4 times 1 is 4. That's positive 4, that's why it's plus. And 4 times negative 2x is negative 8x. Awesome. Now, I have distributed. My next step is to combine like terms. So here's my equal sign, right? On the left side, notice I have 3 terms, and I only want 2 for these problems. So if I have more than 2 on each side or on either side, that means I have like terms that I can combine first, so I'm going to do that. So on the left-hand side, I have negative 5x plus x. And on the right side, I only have 1x, so I can't combine that, but I have a 7 plus 4. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so on the left, I have negative 1 didn't change, but negative 5x plus x is negative 4x equals, okay, on the right side, 7 plus 4 is 11, and then minus 8x. Okay, good so far. Now, I want to move all my x's to the same side and all my numbers to the other side. Okay, now I always move the smallest x. You don't have to, but it does make it, in my opinion, it makes it a lot easier because then you get rid of negative letters or negative variables. So my smallest x between these two, because I have negative 4 and negative 8, negative 8 is smaller. So I'm going to move negative 8 the other way. So to move a minus 8x, I do plus 8x on both sides. Okay, so those go away. And because my x's went to the right, that means my numbers have to go to, well, I'm sorry, my x's went to the left, so my numbers have to go to the right. All right. And it helps if you do it this way. Just another little thing, because if I move everything at the same time, like I'm doing now, whenever I cross off whatever's the same, right? 8x, 8x, 1, 1, I shouldn't be crossing off on the same side, right? So I should have one thing crossed off on each side. And then I'm left with one thing on each side. So if you do this and you cross off two things and they're both on the right side, then you've moved something in the wrong place. Okay? So this might help if you're confused on what goes where or how to move stuff. All right, so I'm going to do negative 4x plus 8x, which is 8 minus 4 is 4x. And 11 plus 1 is 12. Okay? And my last step is divide, which most of y'all are pretty good at. And so x equals 3. And if I go to my answer choices, I have 3 is C right here. And that would be my correct choice. All right. So that is number 1. Moving on to number 2. Number 2 has one fraction in it. Okay. And I'm still, it just says solve for x. So I'm going to highlight what I'm solving. All of this right here. Oh, don't forget the x. Okay. So that's what I'm solving for, or I'm solving for x, but that's what I'm using, my equation. And since a lot of y'all don't like fractions, which is fine, if I have something as simple as this, where I only have one fraction, everything else is a whole number, I can go ahead and just get rid of that one fraction now. It'll make the things a lot easier, because then I don't have to worry about dealing with the fraction and messing up somehow with that. So all I'm going to do to start off is I'm going to multiply everything by my denominator, which is 5. So I'm going to do 5 times, which means I do 5 times everything. We did this on the test review if you watched my video for that one. Okay. So normally if you have like a ton of fractions, this might not work very well, but if I only have one, you could get rid of the one fraction and make the problem a lot easier. So I'm going to do that. So I do 5 times 11 over 5x, which gives me 11x. And then 5 times negative 8 is negative 40. 5 times negative 12 is negative 60. And 5 times 2x is 10x. All right. So look, now we don't have any fractions. It's all whole numbers, so it's a lot easier, less to worry about. And now I get to do what I did on the last problem. And I want to move my smallest x to one side, or the other side, and move my numbers the opposite way. So between 11 and 10, 10 is smaller. So I'm going to do minus 10x, minus 10x. And because I crossed off on the right, that means I'm going to cross off on the left, so I have to do plus 40, right? So again, look, I have one thing on the left and something crossed off. I have one thing on the right and something crossed off. So if doing it this way makes it easier to make sure you're doing it right, and even if you don't move the smallest x, you should still only have one thing crossed off on each side and have one thing left on each side. So it works either way. Okay? So let's do this. We have 11x minus 10x gives me 1x equals negative 60 plus 40, negative 20. And since 1x is the same thing as x equals negative 20, I'll look over here and I have an x equals negative 20, f. And that is my answer. So I am done with number 2. Going on to number 3. Which graph below matches the inequality? And it gives me this inequality right here. So I need to solve. Okay, just like equations, here's my inequality symbol right here. And on each side of my inequality sign, I shouldn't have more than 2 things, right? So like on the left side, I just have a 2. That's fine. But on the right side, I have n, a plus 3, and a minus 6. So because I don't want more than 2 things, that means because I have 3, two of them I should be able to combine because two should be like terms. Okay, so I'm going to combine, since I already highlighted it, I have plus 3 minus 6. Those are both numbers. Neither one has an n, which means they are the same kind of thing. So I have 2 less than or equal to n, and 3 minus 6 minus 3. Okay. Now from here, this is just like all the other ones. My letters are already on the same side because I already have an n. I don't have one over here to move, which means I want to move all my numbers away from my letter. Okay. So I have 2 plus 3 is 5, and now that is my answer. But when I'm talking about which graph does it match, so look, first off, I know it's 5, right? So if I go through these, that's 5, that's 5, that's negative 2, so that's wrong. And this is negative 27, that's wrong. So I'm down to two choices. Do I go right? Do I go left? Okay. Now I've noticed a lot of people still mess up here because if my letter is on the right, remember I want to mirror it, which means I flip everything. And now my arrow is pointing to the right, like if you make this an arrow. So that means that it should be pointing to the right, which is A. Also, if you read this, it is n is greater than 5. Greater than goes up in numbers, it doesn't go down. And because it's underlined, it's filled in, but these are all filled in, so that's an easy one. But my answer is A. Okay. So if you still get confused on these or still find yourself going the wrong direction when you graph, always make sure that if your letter is on the right, to flip it on the left, and that way you can match it to the right one. All right, last one on this page is 4. Okay, determine the domain of the following function. Okay, so my key word here is domain. And if you remember, domain is all x values. And so if I look at my table, look, it's nice and neat. It has x here, y here. And so all I want to do is make sure my answer has all my x values right there. Okay, because domain is x, I only look at x and I want these 4 numbers and nothing else. Okay, because none of them repeat, I should have all 4 in my answer. So look, I should have negative 8. Look at this one. No negative 8. G has no negative 8. H has a negative 8. J also does too. Okay. So I go to the next one. Negative 4. I have negative 4, negative 4. Okay. 7, 7, 7. 10, 10, 10. But if you notice the difference between H and J, J has a bunch of extra numbers. All these numbers are Y's, right? Uh-oh. Camera, come back. There we go. Almost. It's a little blurry, I think. Maybe not. So my J answer has all my Y values also in there. And I don't want Y, right? Because we just want X, or domain. So because I only want domain, I only want my X values. And see how there's only 4? I should only have 4 numbers. Okay, which makes J completely wrong because it has far more than 4. So J is wrong. My answer is H. Okay, and that is it for the front page, so that is it for this video.